Oh my gosh, it's Hotline League episode 136, guys. Playoffs has been insane. We're just coming off of 4 straight days of crazy and wild moments. Every series more epic than the last. And I am here to talk to you about it with noted Poom hater Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
It's great. Fresh off a big old Twitter controversy last night. You know, I love them. Happy to have another one on my hands.
You're constantly picking fights with people, all right? You're just a bully. When I think
Yeah.
of loudmouth, angry, whiny League of Legends personalities who just want to argue with everybody, I think Mark Zimmerman, first and foremost, out of all of them.
That's true.
Of course. That's great. Thanks for that. Yeah.
I mean, how quickly you want to launch into this? You want a preamble? You want to
Well, first off, we got to shout out Alienware. So thank you to Alienware. We're going to talk more about them as the show goes on. However, there has been a lot. So I guess let's just first talk about everything that's happened so far.
I think there's more important things to talk about. Like first teams eliminated from the playoffs.
First teams eliminated, which were the 7th and 8th place teams. Congratulations, everyone! New playoffs format proving itself to. Glad we extended out to 8.
You never know.
We did it for 4.
Miracles.
I mean, the double. I think you need to have it for double elimination, but it is very funny that it's like, cool. We spent 4 days eliminating the 7th and 8th place teams. It's that feels good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with giving them, extra seeds, whatever. They weren't great series. They're both 3-0s in the lower bracket, but I mean, I would rather them have a shot than not. The same reason people are like, oh, best of 3s are great. Well, best of 5s for more teams are good too. Because otherwise the players on Dig and 100 Thieves aren't playing a best of 5, and whom doesn't get experience, for example, right?
But I mean, I do think this it continues to show me that our talent pool is about enough to support maybe 10 teams. And we've got you only really need 6 of them in playoffs. I feel like it's okay. What?
I was gonna say it depends also what you mean by it, because the top academy teams seem to be competitive with bottom to mid tier LCS teams, but at least in terms of teams with real world's aspirations. There we go. That's the one. Yeah, maybe 5 at most. There's usually a couple shoe-ins, a couple who are on the cusp. Like last split, it was is it CLG, TSM, or Clutch? And then it ended up being Clutch, and TL and C9 were obvious, right? Like that. It feels like that's always going to happen. It feels like it again. TL, C9 are obvious. Is it FlyQuest? Is it TSM? Or is it Golden Guardians? I feel like we get around 5 teams that have real chances.
Yeah. Well, regardless.
Also, there's the TSM upset, which is
that's the
biggest news. Yeah.
So that's definitely the biggest news. I do think 100 Thieves flunking out the way they did, I think, is also a big conversation I think those are, for me, the 2 biggest stories coming out of this weekend. Are there any other big stories that I'm missing from the 4 days of playoffs?
No.
I mean, EG losing in their series against FlyQuest is not that went about the way I would predict. I would have given FlyQuest a bit of an edge.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been even more FlyQuest favored. I'm surprised you think that 100 Thieves, I mean, you said it a couple times now, is such a story. Oh, All Pro came out. Holy shit, totally forgot about that.
Oh, yes.
All Pro came out.
Well, I was talking specifically about the 4 days of games, but yeah, All Pro came out. That's interesting. I think Solo was a lot of people. I just want to say I had Solo on mine, and the majority of the Reddit thread was all saying that he got snubbed. And I didn't snub him.
My third team didn't make it. I had Hansar on my third team.
Yeah. Well, Hansar was good too. It was tough. Actually, this was a tough All-Pro. Maybe the toughest that I've voted in quite some time. I felt like there were a lot of positions that were pretty competitive.
Yeah, I tweeted this, but I actually had a different first pro in every position from a different team. I had C9, TL, TSM, Fly, and EG, or excuse me, Golden Guardians all represented in the first pro. So that was something I don't think I've ever had before, where 5 different people from different ones are there. So it was definitely hard. There were snubs all over the place, and I think there were a lot of good people to vote for. So it was going to be a doozy.
Somewhat of my own doing, but I do think, and I see that people talking about this in Twitch chat, the Jensen narrative That spawned Jensen versus TSM fans. I don't even think it's Jensen versus TSM, though. I think a lot of people are trying to construe it that way. It doesn't, from the interview I did with him, it's not like he was going after Bjerg or TSM. It's just like, I mean, you and I think last week on the show talked about how, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I guess, because of that the TSM TL match was supposed to probably prove who was the best team in North America at that time. And I mean, I think I was giving TL a bit of an edge in it, but I did not expect it to be so one-sided. Obviously, then you see them lose to Golden Guardians. So I think, if it is true that TSM was overhyped, I think I was part of that. Maybe you and some of the other analysts and Jensen saying that is, it did seem like it came out to be true.
I mean, I don't have any problem saying when, like, yep, that was probably not right. I mean, I'll get into it when we talk about the Golden Guardians TSM series, because I think I was a fucking coward with my prediction, if I'm being honest. But we'll cover that later. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, the Jensen thing too, it was like that, plus then he replied to Damonte on Twitter. So I think for the people who were trying to blow it up and make a big
Azale, I
thing.
think, right?
Well, he replied to
Azale, who was replying to Damonte.
No, Damonte tweeted something where it was Azale saying something in a video.
Yeah, the chain was Damonte saying the thing. Azale replied to defend his point, and Jensen replied to Azale saying, like,
Oh, I thought Jensen
being
replied
critical of the
directly
analysis.
to Damonte.
No.
I think you're wrong. I'm going to double check it.
Well, how much you want
I
to
must
bet?
be right. I'll bet you
A game fuel?
I'll bet you a game fuel.
Okay.
God, Damonte tweets so much.
Yeah. Well, this is from Twitch chat is gonna.
Shit, you're right.
Yep. Thank God. Oh man, we're starting off the podcast
were you worried?
great.
Were you worried?
No, I was not worried at all because I saw that chain a ton.
Yeah, I didn't look at it that closely. I mean, those are the kinds of things I don't really care about. I think
okay. So you did care about it enough to call it out, and now you don't care about it now that you were wrong.
No, I was saying. Oh, I was just trying to make you wrong. I don't care about Jensen's part. I care about you being wrong, but I was wrong. So ha ha ha. I meant that like that thing happened right after the interview you did. So I think people who were trying to like blow it up had a lot of fuel to work with.
Yeah. I mean, Jensen does seem salty with the amount of like praise that TSM gets. Like that, I think is undisputed in my opinion. Even the tone, like if you watch the interview with me, and I'm not being necessarily critical of Jensen in this way, it's just like whether or not you can argue whether or not he should be or shouldn't be salty, which is what I've seen Reddit do a ton of, and maybe that's something we'll talk about on the show. But you could see in the interview I do with him, my reaction, I've kind of taken it back because it does seem like he was more strongly worded or more aggressive with the take than I was expecting. And so it's like he does that, and then you saw him follow up on social media and stuff. And so I don't know. By the way, it is really disappointing to see some people like then rather than arguing with Jensen's point or something, they start making personal attacks against Jensen, which is really shitty. But I don't know. I think I like it, by the way, because thank God, rarely do we ever have anything interesting happen in this league between players or anybody. So
that's what I was about to say. Is I think because when players tweet back at analysts and influencers and stuff like that, where they call them out or disagree, because it doesn't happen so rarely. When it does, it blows up and makes it a big deal. And I'd rather be in a world where like people are just more down to communicate in general and say like, hey, I think you're wrong, fuck you, like not fuck you, but like I would rather more people doing what Jensen's doing, or like Damonte when he's memeing us, like
yes,
I like that stuff, and I'd rather have that than everyone just not talking and nothing interesting happening. I think it's hard to do though, because obviously, as you can see, these things blow up. The Jensen thing blew up. The thing with Poom blew up. So
I mean, what's really interesting to me about the thing, like, I think Jensen was frustrated that people were underrating TL, and he even said that I think in an interview that I did with him before, and it did seem like TL had a bit of a chip on their shoulder about that.
Yeah, which I think Broxah had a similar attitude at some point.
Which was so like the thing that perplexed me a lot was that my lack of confidence in TL was born entirely out of, one, what seemed like shaky games, but two, like the thing that really shook my confidence was an interview with Jensen after they won a game. This was probably like 3 Jensen interviews ago, where he just
It
was
was
like, I
against
don't,
C9
yeah,
where he was like, we would have lost for
yes,
sure.
yes. And it wasn't just that he was saying it was a little lost. He was like, he just seemed shook. He was like, I don't know what's going on. So that his lack of confidence in TL at that time made me lack confidence. And so then at the end of this interview with Jensen, I was like, I'm kind of confused where this is coming from. You seem upset that people weren't very confident in your team, but you didn't seem confident in it the
Yeah,
last time I talked.
same with Broxa when he was like, I'm not happy we're playing so slow. And so that
Yes.
we were all like, maybe it's a style choice. And he's like,
Yeah.
we want to be more aggressive. And we're like, okay, it's not a style choice. They
Yes.
just struggle with playmaking. And so
Yeah.
like, as well as the fact at the start of the split, I mean, I was sus on a lot. Like, I didn't believe in TSM or CLG right away either when they were both 4-2.
Yeah.
The same way I didn't believe in TL. Like, I was pretty skeptical of all those teams, and I hung on to EG and FlyQuest longer than I should have. But FlyQuest was still good. They were just using Mash, so that was a
Right.
bit of a punt,
Yeah.
anyways.
Well, they were good, but also, I mean, they put in Mash because Turtle was underperforming, and then it seemed to like shake him awake, right? Because then
Right, yeah.
he
I'm
started
not
doing
saying
really well.
right. I didn't mean to say that the Mash benching had no value,
Right.
or the Turtle benching. Just meant that like that was not indicative of what the team's true strength was going to be, anyways.
Yes. Okay.
Uh,
So there's that. There's All Pro. I'm trying to think if there's anything else recently. Maybe that's it. Twitch chat. Am I forgetting anything? Any big moments? I was out of town. I guess we didn't do our normal like little spiel. How's your week been, Mark?
I mean, I think we've done plenty of vamp or a good amount of vamping, and there's more coming too.
CLG
with the,
parted ways with Weldon. I don't think we talked about that on the last show, did we?
I think we did, because that was tweeted immediately after Sunday's games, or maybe it was on Monday morning. But that came out last week. I remember.
Oh yeah, you're right. We did. I'm losing my mind. Yeah, I was out of town. I did a quarantine getaway, which was nice. I got a little sunburned by the pool, and yeah, here I am, and here you are.
Here I am.
Should we talk about 100T?
Let's talk about it. You want to start with your thing, or you want to do my thing first?
I think we do.
People are more interested in what I have to say.
Your thing. Well, no, I've got an interesting take, but because yours is on. Yes. So you tweeted. Can I tell the story?
Go for the story.
Okay. So you tweeted, and I saw this and didn't really think too much about it, but you tweeted Poo Gang, a playoff of Poom Gang, and you tweeted his scoreline, which was not good across those three games. And then, Kelsey Moser, who I retweeted, not thinking, and I maybe she's in the chat, I think, so maybe she's gonna explain. But she tweeted something like, "Hey, you shouldn't shit on people or shit on rookies if you want to have NA rookies, etc." Based and when they've had like a bad scoreline on a day, and my impression was not that she was calling you out, because I thought you made your comment, but I thought it was more like just everybody kind of dogpiling.
Right.
I don't know if she was specifically calling you out.
Well, so she's in Twitch chat right now. She said she hadn't seen my tweet when she made hers. And a bunch of coaches were tweeting similar things. Like, I think Golden Glue tweeted something. I think Papa tweeted something as well. And I've had a couple people tell me like, oh, yeah, I wasn't talking about, like, it wasn't a subtweet at me.
Yes. And that, because the community started hard flaming. Whereas I think your tweet looks bad within the context. So the way, because Mark and I talked about this very briefly last night, and I described it kind of as like littering. And that I think Mark, not a really big deal. I mean, you shouldn't litter, but Mark dropping something or something falling out of his pocket, not that big of a deal. But whenever it's like, hey, there's all this garbage all over the city, you need to be, then it suddenly looks worse if Mark is littering. So that's, I think, what happened there, where like your tweet, probably not that bad in isolation, but when it became one of the prominent things in a large social campaign, impromptu, to shit on Poom and Ryoma, I feel like that was when things got
I think
bad.
it's also just like, I'm probably one of the more notable people who said something negative about Poom, so of course it's easiest to connect the two dots with me. Either way, like, I obviously have a lot of thoughts on it. Starting with what my thought process was in making the tweet, like, I think Empire Chat saying conclusion, no one reads Mark's tweets. All the other tweets,
because Papa Smithy said I hadn't seen Mark's tweet. Everybody in the chat is saying like I hadn't seen Mark's tweet. Whatever they reacted, they were all reacting. So it's just funny that nobody. Nobody actually gave it.
Anyways,
Okay. Anyways, sorry,
I have a
continue.
really immature sense of humor, like obviously.
Yes.
And that joke to me was at this like the same energy that I was going for with like crumbs, dumbs, caps, craps. He has poo in his name. It was a bad series. That's literally the only level I'm thinking at, you know?
Yes.
Like I am not like God, I hate Poom. I think he sucks. There's plenty of video evidence all over the broadcast. Anytime I talk about Poom, even when I'm being critical of him, I'm like, hey, he's really young. Playing from behind can be very difficult in a competitive setting, especially as support. You know, like these are things he needs to improve on in the future, yada yada yada. But he's really young. He's had a meteoric rise, and it's really like great. I also have a lot of evidence, like when Insanity got subbed in and when the Dignitas change were happening. Like I was all for people giving younger North American talent a shot. So like I think there's enough evidence to realize that like I am not, or I would hope people don't think that I'm the one that's gatekeeping North American talent or anything.
That's all you, Mark.
Because like yeah, they like Poom definitely got too much shit, and so like the thing is, I have no problem apologizing if I contributed to that, which I'm sure I did because I saw people afterwards, you know, linking my tweet and stuff, and like the arguments were using my tweet as fodder, and like regardless of what my intention is, hoping that it's just a stupid poop joke with wordplay because he has the word poo in his name, you know, like
Yes,
even if
we
that's
get
my
it. You don't need to keep reiterating that his name
yeah,
has poo in it.
I'm just saying
You
like
said
even
that
if
three
that's my
times, three different ways.
all right, great. If that's my intention, like it doesn't matter because what it's once it leaves your mouth as a public figure, it's about how people interpret it.
Right.
So because it bothered people, you know, I have no problem apologizing and saying sorry. You know, I'm not trying to contribute to any hate that he's getting, and if it is, that's my bad. So
Yes.
like some people are like you shouldn't have had to apologize, and I'm like, well, I'm apologizing if I've made his life more difficult because that's the last
Right.
thing I was trying to do there.
But
And so like we talked a little bit in DMs, traded a couple messages, and I don't think either of us are like too bent out of shape about it. It feels like something that got blown out of proportion by people who are just looking to start shit or you know just fired off tweets. I mean, I don't really care why it happened. It's not a huge deal to me.
I will say just a quick little rant, and we've kind of talked about this before in the show, but like Shoots right now in Twitch chat says, I hate how in normal sports you can criticize people, but in esports people are so sensitive. First off, traditional sports, not normal sports. Secondly, we don't play abnormal sports. Okay, we play different type esports.
Strange sports versus regular sports. I'm a strange gamer.
Strange sporter. Anyway, okay. So I do not think that saying that, hey, people are dicks to pros in traditional sports means that we should be allowed to be dicks to pros in esports. The situations are not the same. These people are oftentimes much younger. They are oftentimes not, they haven't been part of a system that has prepared them for criticism slowly over time. In a lot of cases, they are people who have, you know, not, I don't want to play the stereotype, but there are some people who are like socially awkward nerds who played video games a lot and suddenly they're being thrust into the limelight. Is a bit of a different situation than most sports athletes. And they are way more in touch with social media. And like the situations are not the same. So I
And
think,
even then, in traditional sports, players, you know, get frustrated and
yes.
say things back.
And so
Like
that's my
fucking
final point. Even
yeah.
if you ignore all the facts that like these are different situations, rather than just being like, it's in traditional sports, this people should just learn to deal with it. Like, okay, just because people are dicks in traditional sports, does that mean we have to decide that's how esports needs to be? Like, congratulations, you're an asshole. By the way, I'm not saying we're going to be able to, because then people always then extrapolate out to this and they're like, Travis, you can't stop it, all right? That's just the way it's always going to be. Sure, guess what? People are going to get murdered sometimes in real life. That doesn't mean you don't try to stop people from murdering other people.
It's slippery slope argument 101.
Yeah, it's this weird thing where it's like, oh, well, people are assholes. They're always going to be assholes. So, like, it's fine if it exists. I'm like, no, it's not fine. We should actively try to avoid being assholes to each other, especially with the world as, like, negative and shitty as it is. So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's my take there.
The other thing I'll throw on here too is like people started going after like, oh, this isn't what your job is or what you should be doing in terms of like the tweet. Like this isn't analysis or criticism, and it's like you're right, it's a joke, and I don't think league community figures, analysts or otherwise, can only tweet serious stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it was a bad joke and it obviously bothered people. So I can be like, yeah, that was a bad joke, but that doesn't mean that it was, supposed to be any sort of analysis or anything. And like, if you look at my tweets from the past couple of days, they are chock full of things just as stupid or immature as that. Like, if you don't watch me or follow my Twitter, like, it is full of stupid jokes. Like, I had a Game of Thrones joke making fun of Dignitas's draft. I asked if people smelled upsetty spaghetti, and then when Dignitas started losing, I said, "Nope, that's just their corpse." Like, I said, FBI made Doublelift look like the DMV. Like, I'm always making stupid jokes. That was a much better one, by the way. That was a pretty clever one. If I'm going to toot my
They're
own horn
both
a
okay.
little bit. So, like,
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, this is 100% in line with what I said. It was probably just more problematic given the series that just ended, the fact he was already getting hate and all these other things, which I can acknowledge make it a bad joke. But I don't think, like, tonally it's like, oh my God, you're such a dickhead. And I'm like, what?
Ropo Man in chat, and we'll get to callers on this. If people feel strong, actually, I know a lot of people feel strongly on this, but Ropo Man is doing a thing that I see some people do, which is it's always this kind of like they want to justify the ability for people to be assholes to pro players, so they work backwards under like really false pretenses. So Ropo Man says they are getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to play and get criticized. No, that's actually not true. They're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money, not always, by the way, but often to play. It's not like Papa Smithy comes in and goes, "Hey man, you are an amazing player, and you're also just a tank for other people's shitty feelings. We're going to hire you now. It's about 50-50. But half your salary we're equating to your performance in game. The other half is the ability
Twitter
for you to
Twitter actions through hate.
Yes, exactly. We're paying you for the mental anguish you will be taking from people." I think it's always so funny when people say that shit.
Yeah. People talk about punching up versus punching down as well. I totally agree. Like, that's something I didn't take enough into consideration because when Puma and I were talking a little bit, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he was, talking about, like, he is new.
Yeah.
The amount of hate threads and hate that he has gotten relative to even myself, let's say, or other pro players. He's just, it's like the first time someone tells you to kill yourself in your DMs is probably, I can't remember the first time it happened to me, but like, you do build, like, skin doesn't start thick a lot of the time. Like, you build up to it through, like, realizing that the controversies go away. Like, at this point, I know people hate me, let's say because of what I tweeted last night. I know in 2 weeks it's not going to be a huge deal. People might bring it up, but for the most part, people have moved on. Like, the first time that happens, you're paranoid and freaked out. And so, like, for a young guy who's in his first scene, that's his first split. It just ended. He didn't have a great series. I think he knows that and stuff. Like, it's not the same situation, like you're saying about punching up versus punching down. Doublelift, like when I make a joke about Doublelift or something, like, I'm going to make people the butt of my jokes sometimes, but that doesn't mean that you can do that unilaterally across the scene. And that's something that I totally admit that I was not thinking enough about. So
okay, so we need to get in calls, but the other thing I want to prime really quickly, if anybody wants to talk about this, I'd love to talk about this. And Mark, I'd love to get your take on this. I was really surprised, and I know Papa Smithy's in the Twitch chat, so I'm just going to look right now because I'll talk when I'm talking about him. I was really surprised because Nadeshot tweeted, where is it? Disappointed to say the least. John Robinson. These are the two people that run 100 Thieves, obviously. John Robinson, COO and president, says, like, such a disappointing year. A lot of work if we're to contend in 2020. And sorry to all our fans and GG's to EG today. This is what's weird to me, Mark. Like,
I'm still here.
What's that? Are you still here?
I'm still here. Yeah,
okay.
I just was angling my fan on me more. I'm sweating
up. What's weird to me is I feel like 100T going into this year was their expectations were not worlds at the start of the year. And maybe Papa Smithy's on the Twitch chat yelling at me. I'm ignoring. But like that was sort of, it was like, hey, we're going to like build slowly over time. Gradually, we're going to be this development team that ends up like getting to worlds. Like, that's not our goal for right now. And maybe their goal was higher than what they placed, but like, I'm surprised that people are so disappointed with the team's placing given sort of the plan of action for this year. Am I crazy in thinking that? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted when I was getting up, I guess, or something. No, Papa's been, I think, pretty clear about having pretty measured expectations. I know when they had the better spring split than I think they finished spring better than they thought they would. And then in summer, when they made the roster changes, Papa said something, and I'm going to put some words in his mouth here, but something along the lines of like, we don't think we can reach worlds with this roster anymore, like we thought we did after our spring finish, and so we're making changes. So
Yeah.
like, I don't think it was like worlds or bust, but I do think that they began to believe a little bit more after spring.
Yeah. I think this is what's interesting is I okay, so I will always remember, and I don't know, he's gonna listen to this at some point in time. Hopefully he doesn't get angry with me. But Hunter, when he first formed Golden Guardians, they built that like all NA roster. And obviously Golden Guardians performed really poorly in the first year, but like the plan was, okay, we're gonna slowly build over time. That's kind of like what the Golden State Warriors have done, I guess, in NBA, right? And that before they started having their dynasty. And it's just like that's a great thing to say until you start losing a ton and you feel like shit and you feel like winning is super important and you have to go out and do it. Like it's like, wait, we're not at the top of the league, we feel like Garbo or whatever. And so it's interesting because it's like I assume, I mean, I don't know what the conversations were like between Papa Smithy and 100 Thieves leadership, but I was just surprised to see so much disappointment from them when like, hey, you built like a lineup of like new players and you brought over some people that like had not played in North America before, and like these are the results that you ended up getting. Like I don't think it's that shocking, right? Like they went from being one of the highest paying orgs salary wise to like not in that vicinity anymore. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I think anytime you regress, though, it feels bad. Like, so doing worse in summer than spring and needing roster changes is always going to feel bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Anyway, we should grab some takes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have big ass takes this time, and a lot of it is centered on the Poom thing. And honestly, I don't know how much I want to keep talking about it because
I mean,
think
one or
that,
two calls I think is not terrible. Like if
yeah,
you
I
have one
don't
call on
mind,
either side of it, I think that's fine.
but I would like something a little bit like I'm looking for a more intelligent take than like Mark did nothing wrong, players grow thicker skin, or the other one. The other side is like North American talent needs chances and can't get flamed, and that kind of like those are the two I see a lot, and I don't necessarily
okay. I moved
have
somebody.
anything. You found one you like?
Yeah. But it's definitely like a more positive one. I think we should
When
also,
you say positive, you mean for
like
who?
a pro rookie, like I don't know.
I I don't know what his stance is. You didn't describe it at all.
It's not a like Mark did nothing wrong take. It's the opposite.
Okay, sure.
It's not like they're hard flaming you, but you get the point.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm looking for other ones. Do you want me to grab him while I look for more people?
No, you can grab a couple more people. I'll read out some subs. Thank you to Prosidian for the Prime, Naked Homeless Man for 31 months. I don't know if it's Ian Pasta or Land Pasta. Eat Monster, thank you for the Prime. Also, shout out, by the way, to oh, here, let me grab it.
Minor note. People are saying a lot like this team's the best team or whatever, but I think I'd like the team discussion to be more oriented on actual series than just saying TL's the best. Because that's not going to be anything new to say than what you could have said last week.
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, I'm hopeful that people talk about like the TSM Golden Guardians thing because I think that's interesting. By the way, shout out to FlyQuest. I don't know if you got this, Mark, but they sent.
Oh, I got a shirt. I didn't open it.
They hand delivered. It's a jersey, and
Yeah,
I tend to turn down jerseys, but they offered me this, and it's like their cool new playoffs jersey with the Sequest stuff on it. You can't really see that well because it's. But and then they added they did a custom TGI champion of the reef. I don't think I'm a champion of the reef, but I appreciate them saying that. And then also it was like a team swag week for me, I guess. This is why Travis always does softball interviews, because he can get all the swag from everybody. TL sent me some stuff, including a blue. Have you seen this yet, Mark? I think it's kind of cute.
It's kind of cute.
I think it's great. Anyway,
I think it's okay. It's still down there.
I mean, I think it's good. Got a little vest on.
I'm not a stuffed animal kind of
TL logo. I mean, I'm not normally either.
What do you mean? Your room is full of them. If you turn that camera around, that's all you're gonna see.
Yeah. Well, that and the pillows, the body pillows.
Yeah, all your anime waifu body
yes,
pillows.
Exactly. But I can only if you turn them the other way. There's a lot. You can't put that on Twitch. One side is safe for Twitch. The other side is not. Anyway, let's maybe grab some people.
I got a couple people. You want me to start? I think you pulled Vienna first, right? That was the one that you pulled. You want to just do that now?
We don't have to. We can do that.
But I don't remember the order I pulled.
Off Marco.
So who do you want?
I don't normally manage this. You go figure it out.
You pulled the person. That's why I asked.
Mark, you're making too big of a deal of this. Please. Thank you. Neon Puddles, thank you for the 23 months. Max Wibble, thank you for the 1 month. Nardis, thank you for the Prime. The High Ground, thank you for the 9 months. Neon Puddles almost at 2 years. 45 minutes, no calls. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, Mark got himself into some salty stuff, so I feel like that was good. Also, sometimes people say they like the part where we talk more. Our dads are fighting. Yeah, we always fight on the show. Spiritus, welcome to the show. Spiritus, where are you calling from?
Laramie, Wyoming.
Laramie, Wyoming. I'm gonna look that up right now.
Is that like Jeremy?
There aren't that many people that live in Wyoming, right?
No, there aren't even 600,000, I think.
Wow.
So somewhere around 550, I think, total. Yeah.
In the entire state?
Entire state.
Yeah, Wyoming is like super underpopulated. It's crazy.
What the fuck? How much just land out there? Can I with a quarter?
It's pretty cheap if you go for the flat stuff,
I think
where you can't dig a well.
It's either Wyoming or Montana that Kelby's always talked about retiring and just owning like a giant house out there. And
I want a ranch. I don't know.
Spiritus, what do you want to talk about on the show?
Hey, so I wanted to say I think that Golden Guardians picking up Damonte was the best roster move of the split. For a couple of reasons, but mostly I think in the short term, obviously this has been well talked about, not exactly hot take here, but he synergizes well with closer and does a lot of team playing and whatnot. But another thing is that I think what was overlooked in the offseason last season is how much improvement he showed throughout the summer split when they made that miracle run to actually land a world spot. And to look past that guy for spring was extremely tragic to me, just because I think he has shown so much ability to grow and play around the team and do what they need him to do. So there was a lot of talk about Hooney and Double Lift and people like that moving around. I don't think anyone's going to make the strongest arguments about the Double Lift change right now. But
yeah, I mean, Zeus in the chat says obviously the best was dropping Double Lift. And I mean, you went from 9th to 1st, so it's that's a bigger differential than the Golden.
Or was it picking up tactical?
Yeah, well, they already. I mean, I guess I didn't really count the tactical one quite as much because he was already on the team and already started a couple games. But you could make the argument,
I was just
Double Lift as the best one. I understand that angle, but I just think that for a long-term investment, it's really hard to beat Damonte just because
what about
he's got the right mindset, he also brings brand, though. The whole discussion's been had on the show before about brand versus just skill potential, but he's got it all in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm also very curious about the mash move to bring him in and reset Wild Turtle and turn him into what was a very good ADC on the other side.
I'll give it to whoever ends up making worlds.
Between Golden Guardians and
between the Damonte move and the temporary mash or turtle benching. Well, I do think Damonte is a better move in the sense because you did pick him up, and it seems to have worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean a player acquisition. I didn't get too wordy because I didn't want to put a really wordy take into Discord, but
No, I know what you mean. Actual roster pickup, not
Right.
like temporary.
Yeah, not just subbing someone in or out.
Right. It's not like we're talking. Oh, Dardoch was huge. You got them into playoffs. I mean,
Right.
he was. Yeah. I mean, actually, he was picked up by Dig, so technically that one would count. I guess.
I mean,
Immortal.
it's super interesting to me that Dignitas did not go with Damonte. That's so wild. Like they tried Damonte against Phoenix and against Dragon, right? And then they decided he's our third best mid laner and sent him off to Golden Guardians.
It's
like I feel like Huni loses games more than he wins them. That's just an emotional, like kind of or psychological impression I've gotten. I haven't like looked at the stats for it, but I mean that's not to say every game he's in he either wins or loses it for them. I mean I definitely think there are ones where he just kind of holds the course, but I mean he is, when you think of a player as a liability or like a raw carry potential, I think it's weighted unfavorably for that particular player. So I also was shocked when they got rid of Damonte, when it's like, dude, like this guy is on the up and up. Like Huni was already known to be a great player, but we watched Damonte just grow and grow and grow last summer, and yet boom, there he goes. It's like he was on the trajectory to be like, you know, in my opinion, like a top 2 mid or a top 3 mid potentially. But then he didn't get the opportunity to play in spring, which sucks because then he had to kind of start over. I feel like at the beginning of this split, like easing back into it and ramping back up. But I think he has done it tremendously well. And his stats aren't flashy or anything, but I think that's just because he's always playing what the team needs him to play. Like we've seen him pop off in carries or run around and be supportive or whatever they need.
Let's get into the actual meat of the take then. Mark, I mean, do you think you said you'd give it to FlyQuest or GG, but do you think Damonte is the best move of this year?
I think so. Well, of the year, I don't know.
Oh, between spring and summer?
Yeah, but between the two splits, for sure. I think he's worked better with the team. I think part of it was the team just improving as well. I mean, you have to remember between spring and summer, also there was like the Keith experiment, then who he came in and had to establish synergy with FBI, and there was a bunch of other things at play going on there. It wasn't just Damonte coming in, but I think he's kind of what the team needed. And you know, they needed a good native mid laner. Damonte is the most recent native mid laner to make Worlds, if people didn't know that. You know, Popelter didn't make it last year. I think you can make the argument that he is the best native mid laner. And if you have a great jungler and a great AD that are imports, which they do, then he's exactly what you need. And, you know, he's no slouch. Like no one like craps on Damonte in North America as much as we might put people higher, like PoE and this, like, you know, there's a bunch of people who are higher in the mid lane all pro voting, but none of them like abuse Damonte. He's not a liability in any way.
He's never gotten exposed. Damonte exposed.
Yeah, the most you could say is like his champ pool at sometimes can be somewhat like not even hit or miss. Just like there's some champs that he's clearly better on.
Yeah, I mean he went up against MVP contender Bjergsen in that series, and I don't think it was ever a situation where it's like, wow, Bjergsen just pummeling
Damonte's holding him back. You know, like not at all. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of the year, like I remember there was a conversation. I don't remember if it was on this show or the dive or somewhere else where like, I think it might have been this show where it was like someone was complaining about not getting picked up on a roster. Then like there was the at the moment look at like, well, is, you know, people are saying, well, you know, we think that, you know, oh, Damonte was actually on the show, I think, actually, when we discussed this. And he was like, well, you know, clearly people think that like Froggen and Golden Glue and the other ones are just better than him and more deserving of the spot at the moment. And to me, it's like, well, yeah, but trajectory isn't being taken into account here. Like, do you think that's like an underrated factor, or am I crazy here like that? He was getting really good really fast.
I mean, I don't know about trajectory. I think people do try and take that into account, but I don't think
anybody was saying Damonte is getting really good really fast. I feel like that's what people were saying about Blabber, for instance.
I mean, I think people respected Damonte though, you know. It's like I don't know what happened with Diggs' decision making, you know, with like getting rid of Vulcan and re-upping on Huni, not Damonte, you know, like all that was a big question mark for me. So I can't really comment on why that happened at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm a little biased on this just because I love that Damonte's in the league, and
Same.
it makes my job easier, and he's just he is what I wish we had more of in this league, which is, you know, newer to somewhat newer player who is got a good positive attitude, does well enough, is a native North American. Like, I don't know. I'm a big Damonte fan. I think Mark and I both are. So, and as much as we're fans of any team or any player or team, I guess. So, I don't know. It's hard to disagree with you, Spiritus.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't the hottest take then, I guess. But
No. I think it's good. I mean, I think for a player who was not on a team in spring, I think this guy and got rejected for 2 mid laners who didn't even make it out of the first round of playoffs. I think it's
Didn't even make playoffs, right?
Well, I was talking about Tig.
Oh, well, one of them didn't make playoffs.
Right. But you get what I meant. That team decided.
Yeah.
Spiritus, any shout outs or anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
Loving my Alienware laptop that I picked up. It's an M15 R2. Freaking solid. I had another laptop that was like similarly spec'd, but it was having like driver issues and things like that. And Dell just has like the best customer support and whatnot. So I was like, I'm just going to switch, even though I don't need to upgrade from a hardware perspective. So really glad I did that. And shout out to Reaper, who I called in like 2 years ago, said he was the best coach in NA. And now everyone like universally seems to agree. So there's that too. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you, Spiritus. Have a good one. Keep holding it down with the 599,999 other people in your state.
Yeah. Thanks.
You want to sneak one more in before the break? Because we only did one call.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Off. Mark goes. The Despair Bear, thank you for the 7 months. Zokage, thank you for the Prime. OPTSM fan gifted a sub to Vienna. The High Ground for the tier 2. Oh wow. I'm sorry I missed that. I might have said it earlier and then missed it. But thank you to everybody who is subbing. We're back. We're underwater on the subs right now. Vienna is here. Vienna, where are you calling from?
I have to cancel the show.
I'm calling from Ontario, Canada.
Ontario, Canada. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So we kind of had like a small conversation already on Hotline League so far today. And I felt bad because I wasn't sure if you guys want to do this take or not. Because a lot of people have spoken about it on Twitter already. But my take's pretty simple. I think that we're like stunting our growth as a region with the extensive expectations that we place on short-term results for LCS, especially expectations placed on newer players. The community, like I feel like there's a really big hypocrisy of them being frustrated by recycled players, like using them over new talent, but they're not willing to accept the negative results that would potentially come with, fostering talent themselves. People are always like, why are we so focused on old LCS players and recycling them? And I think it's like 2 reasons. One of the biggest thing is that first, it's a safe option, right? Like you have an idea of how they're going to perform in the LCS, the expectations of what their skill level is at. But also, we also have an expectation of how the community will feel and react to them as players. So like the branding is already something you can understand and expect, like with Double Lift and Biofrost and everything like that. So it's important that we understand that like negative press is a big part in that, right? Like you promoting a new player, you don't know how the community is going to react to that. And LCS is an entertainment industry at heart, and I don't think like public outrage influences any coach's opinion of their personal skill. But I think that it affects like the organization's like opinions on, is this player actually good for us? Like we're getting really bad press about like the moves we're making, and we're like getting discouraged, and like they're forced to make decisions that they don't believe in to like please the league community. And I think that's like really hurting us overall.
So a couple different things there. It reminded me of 2 things. One is Kelsey, the tweet that she made that was not in response to yours, but seemed like it was in response to yours, Mark. A lot of people were saying, oh, So you're telling me that teams make decisions based off of community sentiment? And that also reminded me of when Sneaky, I feel like was it Sneaky? Who was it? I think it was Sneaky who was saying, oh, it was High several years ago. High felt as though he lost, like his players on his team or his teammates lost faith in him because the community started to become really critical of him, and they would go read the Reddit threads, and that shaped like a basically like a starting to become like a lack of trust in him because there was so much negative sentiment towards him. So I think it's a really interesting conversation to have, is like,
Yeah, there's two parts to it. One, which is about, you know, this hypocrisy, right, of wanting new players but then trashing them.
Yes.
And then the other one is that the influence that would have on teams.
Right. Like,
so
because there were a lot of people. So I saw several tweets at Papa Smithy who was somewhat defending Poom, or was talking about the Poom situation and saying, like, basically asking people not to be shitty to him. And somebody replied and was like, this definitely is covering up the fact that you decided to run Ryoma for 2 splits consecutively despite his disappointing spring start. And, you know, like, they were really critical of Papa Smithy's decision to run Ryoma for 2 splits in a row. Whereas I think I didn't see it, but people were talking about how Grabs on one of the co-streams was saying, well, you definitely run Ryoma a second split, because if you like giving a rookie or new talent only 1 split to succeed in is kind of foolish. If, like, why pick him up in the first place if you're only going to give him such short time? So I thought that was all pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's always this weird dichotomy between being critical of a player and in their performance, and being critical of that player and, like, they're not deserving, but, like, you know, they're having their spot, so, like, they should be benched. Because, like, I was critical of Poom's play in those weeks, you know, against the two I remember specifically were the Core JJ game, or against Core JJ, where Core JJ's bar killed a bunch of times, in the Nautilus game. And it was like, okay, he's dying too many times in these situations, but he's a young player and he's going to learn. You know, like, I think you can have criticism of this talent, a player like Insanity, a player like, oh my god, my cat is just relentlessly wanting to play right now. I'm sorry. But there are a number of young players who come in, and you can be critical of them, and it's not saying that they don't deserve their jobs as well. And I think the problem is people go too far, you know, to the caller's point, like, and they start saying that this guy fucking sucks, get him out of here. And that's like, or like, you're doomed because this player is playing, which is, I think, a different thing.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it's a line that's crossed a lot in the community.
I also think that, like, there's nothing wrong with having criticisms of a player. I think the issue is that, like, we can't control how the, like, hive mind Reddit community responds to, how we do things, right? Like, if they could flame Poom regardless of what anyone says, we can't control that. But what we can control is how the people, like the face of the league and the casters and, like, the leaders of the community, like, put out their feelings, right? Like, you can do it in a tasteful way that doesn't encourage, like, extensive and, like, disgusting aggressive behavior. Like, not that personally, I don't think your tweet was that bad. I think that it was a joke. I just think that maybe it was not a tasteful joke at the time because you didn't realize the possible results of that. So it's just like, it's hard for us to, like, really decide whether the community is going to respond negatively like that. So we just, like, all we can do is, like, in the community, is do the best we can to prevent, like, this happening, because, like, all this bad press for, like, teams is going to make it harder for them to take the next step. And I think 100 Thieves did a really great job of taking that step, and we shouldn't be punishing them for being willing to take the risk because of how awful the amateur and collegiate scene is right now. Like, those risks have to happen. Like, no one will be prepared 100% in LCS right now because we don't have anything in place for them to be prepared. So those risks have to happen, and we shouldn't punish organizations for doing that.
Yeah, and I think, at least on LCS broadcast, we were always very positive about teams being like, okay, what's your fucking game plan on an organizational level? Like, if you're not going to contend for Worlds, like, why would you start players who have 6 to 8 years of game, like, experience? It's just like, oh, because you already, like, paid their check or whatever, you know? So, like, when Dig made the roster swaps, I mean, we went from being super critical, and same with Immortals, we went from being super critical to like, thank God they're doing something different. And even though, you know, Immortals picked up 4 wins out of, I think it was 12 games, like, I think our tone was totally different than when it was the other roster. And so, like, I totally agree that I would rather see teams take risks and bomb out when they're already not going to make Worlds anyways. And I will always try to, you know, applaud orgs for doing that, and at the same time not pull like every single punch just because they're new. Like, I think that's people seem to think that that's the alternative. That's not the alternative. It's like it's a straw man that, like, oh, if you're encouraging teams and wanting to not go hard on younger players, that must mean that you don't want to criticize them at all. It's like,
well,
no.
and I'll take some ownership of this. Sometimes, like, especially as a content creator, it is tempting, and I see this from the community too. It is tempting to just be like, ha, time to make fun. Like, I've made fun of Huhi a lot. You know, I've made fun of other players. Ryoma, I feel like, becomes this like whipping boy. And Viper, I think, is one of those players right now too. There was a really great moment on Sneaky's co-stream, which I've been watching a ton of lately. He was doing it without Medios, and the Twitch chat all started trying to make fun of Viper. And he's just sitting there. He started like arguing with Twitch chat. He's like, you guys just like, is somebody whispering in your ear trying to like make it so that you guys just want to constantly make fun of this guy or like pick out every single issue that he has? Like, they're not losing because of Viper in this game. Like, yes, he had this situation that occurred, but also he was way behind because of all these other things that happened in the game, because other people are underperforming, etc., etc. And so, again, like, I get it that, hey, you know, people sometimes like to pick on a certain player or whatever, but it is interesting when you just sort of see the circle jerk become like, haha, let's all make fun of this player no matter what they do, because suddenly, you know, even if they're having like a decent game, the couple of mistakes they might make there end up being pulled apart.
And I think especially in Viper's situation and people in a similar situation to that, is that he's in some sense supposed to be justifying, like, because it's a position battle that, at least on the outside, it seems like a position battle to fans. Like, why aren't we seeing Lorlo? And it just turns into this like, point out everything he does wrong because I think Lorlo should be in, right? Or whatever it is. I mean, I've definitely been critical of Viper, but like, you know, what can you do? I also try to build people up when I feel like they are playing well. Like when FBI was popping off and James pointed out they only had 1,900 followers on Twitter, I was like, what the fuck? And we kind of organized like this, pimp out his Twitter account and stuff. And to be honest, we're probably too like slow at doing that. It took to him dumpstering Double Lift in a series before, you know, we were like, okay, we should probably hype him up. Like, we hadn't done enough for him, you know. But like, I think that's important too, is when things do work out, being extremely, you know,
like, oh, this player popped off. Like,
actually praising them a lot. So like Golden Guardians, having all these players performing well, Huki's role swap working out, FBI stepping up, Closer being a good import, Damonte, you know, like all these different things. Like, yeah, we should spend a lot of time bolstering them.
Overdrive in chat says streamers usually pick on the same player, so then chat joins in. That's one concern I've had with co-streaming, and one of the reasons why I was really happy that Sneaky was defending a player who his chat is like, I do think that unlike the LCS broadcast, there is incentive for co-streamers to be incendiary and to like, oh man, this guy's just playing like shit. Oh my god, are you kidding me right now? Why would you do that? and I do worry that like that feeds this kind of negative cycle where then everybody else, you know, Papa Smithy also said in chat that people like to feel like they're part of the consensus and part of the crowd, and so it's like you have certain personalities ripping into a rookie or a player, and then that self-perpetuates as the community picks up on it, which incentivizes the streamer to like shit on them even more. Like, I have the same thing, you know, I feel that on this show where like if I make a joke about a player that I know is unpopular, and I can safely make the joke and get a rise out of Twitch chat, it's like really tempting sometimes to take that pot shot. So I don't know, it's something I need to be better about, but I hope other people will be too.
It's on us to like go out of our way and try to better the community however we can. So I mean, we can't change what everyone else thinks, only what we put out there.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Fallacy in chat says, yeah, Medio saying TSM needed to pause the game to give Double Lift a Heimlich maneuver for his joking is pretty funny. So like, I will agree. That is really funny.
That's
here's
funny,
the thing. there's a scale between how
Yes.
like how much shit talking you're doing to how funny it is, right? So like
True.
if you say something that's fucking hilarious, like yeah, that's great. I mean, like that Meteos thing is great. Like
Yes.
no one's gonna get mad. And I don't think I don't want banter to disappear. I don't want shit talk to disappear. I don't want, flame in the like people are giving their honest takes. I don't want that to disappear. Like I love when one pro player says he thinks another pro player is like overrated or shit.
Yes.
Like that sparks so much conversation. I don't think it needs to be harped on to the degree that people harp on some of these things, but like I don't want that stuff to go away because that's the shit that really gets you into the scene.
But and I think like here's a good example. Jensen saying TSM was overhyped, I think is great. That's like a fun narrative. If Jensen was just like, wow, Phoenix sucks, I'm like, great conversation we're having here. Like we're talking about a bottom tier team with like a player that is not very popular anymore. Like it's sort of like, what's the point of doing that? And it's not particularly interesting. So like that I think is yes, there is value. Peter dishes out trash talk all the time. He's an MVP. Him like choking in a series, I think, is something that maybe people can be more critical of, and he'll be able to take it versus like somebody tweeting "poo gang" with a bunch of terrible squirrel.
I mean, as much as I am sorry that like it caused flame and stuff, but like I look forward to like a year from now when he's had more experience and he's playing well. Like how people do the coin flip things, the caps and craps and claps. Like I look forward to like hopefully becoming I want it to be a meme. I didn't want it to be like a put down of any kind.
Yeah, it's the beating the dead horse type thing. Right?
Yeah,
it's like
maybe when he pops off in the future, everyone will just spam poo gang and it'll be great.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to think. Did we cover all of the topic? Oh, I guess we didn't really talk about the like
orgs taking it seriously.
Yeah. Look, I will say. Here's what I will say. In a perfect world, every GM, coach, and teammate would just be able to completely tune out any criticism that they see and come at it in a completely objective way. That's just not the way the world works. Like if you are, for instance, an investor in 100T and you're watching their games every week and the community just is hard flaming a rookie, that person will probably say, why do you have this player on this team, to the people that are running it. They might feel a little more pressure to put a little more pressure on the GM, who might put a little bit more pressure on the player. Like this stuff, even if it's not happening on every team, I got to tell you folks, like all this stuff is not in isolation. And like when you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to make people like you and you want to feel like folks actually want to root for you, it is gonna feel bad and sometimes be tempting to be like, let's just bring in Sneaky next year rather than taking a chance on a rookie, because we know people love Sneaky and it'll be a cool story. Everyone will be super excited about the signing, etc. I'm not saying people shouldn't sign Sneaky. It's just like it makes the risk even bigger on trying to sign rookie talent whenever you feel like you're going to get beat the fuck down if that person doesn't succeed within their first split.
And that's why I like to try and criticize orgs more for bad decision making, or like not, or like what we're talking about, like reusing talent or something when they have other people that they should be trying through academy and stuff. I've been trying to be more critical of orgs instead of players on bad teams this split, much more so, which I think is I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but at least it's maybe less personal.
Vienna, any shout outs?
Shout out to all the C9 sponsors, we got a lot of them. So
Vienna, by the way, is a streamer for C9.
None of them happen to be a sponsor of this show, though.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm not gonna name them. But no, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I think it was cool to hear your guys' takes on it too. I'm happy to see you guys, had some stuff to say. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks for complimenting our takes, caller.
Yeah,
anyway,
thanks. Pretty good.
Thanks, Vienna. Have a good one.
No worries. Thanks.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that before. We do have some good takes, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Even if Twitch chat disagrees, we have some great takes. All right.
You gonna do a sponsor read?
Yeah, I am. Speaking of great takes, you could all take this sponsor read from me right now. Alienware.com/Travis. Everybody right now. Just everybody. I don't care who you are. Go to Alienware.com/Travis. Because right at the very top, you're going to see a banner that says Intel Gamer Days, win the Ultimate Battle Station, enter now. And you can literally enter to win. It takes like no time to do that. I think right now what I'm looking at is it looks like, I think there's a couple different things on there, but one of them is like just follow Alienware on Twitter or Intel Gaming, and you have a chance to win a Alienware or R11 with 10th gen Intel Core i9 10900K 34-inch Alienware curved gaming monitor. That's what I use right now. Alienware Pro gaming keyboard and Alienware Elite gaming mouse and Alienware 7.1 gaming headset and a $300 Steam gift card. The ultimate gaming battle station is part of Intel Gamer Days. Pogs in the chat. All right, Twitch chat. Pogs in the I don't know, whatever you're doing if you're listening to the podcast. I know there's not really a good way to pog on the podcast.
You
Anyway,
just pog in your car and look at other people in traffic.
yes, if you're in traffic or if you're at a stoplight, I want you to turn to the
And
person
PogChamp at someone.
lock eyes with them and just silently mouth PogChamp at them. All right. Anyway,
I can't do the face well. Anyway, it's like more lippy than it is teeth, you know?
yeah, I've heard that. Anyway, it's Intel Gamer Days. Can't make those jokes.
That's one of your best jokes.
Can't make those jokes during a sponsor plug. Intel Gamer Days going on right now. Alienware.com/Travis. Go check it out. And by the way, hey, as a quick aside, everyone, I talked to or I heard some news about how many of you guys have been using my code for Alienware stuff. Thank you. I legitimately mean that. It is actually impressive to find out how many people are using the code and buying stuff from our sponsor to support us. And that is like, no, all jokes aside, it was really wild whenever I heard. So I deeply, meaningfully thank you all for supporting them. Either way. Oh yeah, by the way, Travis 10 off Q3 if you want to save 10% on your order. All this will be in the link all this stuff will be in the description of the YouTube video. Let's move on to the next caller. Off Mark goes.
Off I go.
Off he goes. Shout out to, speaking of support, the Despair Bear. I think I already said them. Ted Too Cold, and is it Magi Mick? Magi Mick? I don't know on there, but thank you for your 2 months. I just don't know how to say your name. Did it? Ziggy Carmine says, Travis, I'm currently watching Hotline League on my Alienware monitor, and the quality is just stunning. I went from a silver player to gold just by plugging in the screen. I mean, it's really important to have a screen plugged in when you're playing League of Legends, so I can understand. All right. Thew is here. Oh, God. Thew is here. Where are you calling from?
Maine.
Maine. Well, thanks for calling from Maine. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I think that TL matches up better against FlyQuest, but they are focused on taking out TSM out in the early rounds to help them not gain momentum in the long run.
Oh, so you're saying this is like a 5-head play?
Yeah, they're
TL
way out
to
in the
draft
future.
Golden Guardians so they can send FlyQuest down to FlyQuest or C9 down to face TSM.
No, CSM plays the loser of TL Golden Guardians.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
So they're beating. They pick the person that they want to send to take care of Team TSM.
Yep.
They've. Oh, that's awesome. I really like this take.
Yeah, so I basically think that TL just matches up against FlyQuest better in almost every single way. I think they both play for scaling, but overall TL is just better. Maybe besides Santorin and Broxa, but Broxa can just farm and go 0/0/0 on Graves, so that doesn't really matter. But GGS are super active in the early game. And that actually will create more problems for TL in the long run. But I think what TL does really well is punish mistakes. And so I think that that gives them the edge in the series. But I think overall, I just think that the FlyQuest series would be much easier for them. Farm for 30 minutes, win one team fight, win the game type of deal, rather than having to play a lot of the early game. And so the part about TSM is that I think TL are just thinking about the future and who does TSM have a better chance of winning against. And I think they match up a lot better against FlyQuest
So
than GGS. And if TSM regains footing inside of playoffs, they could actually be a threat in the long run. And I actually think that with this idea, TL actually has a good feeling of probably ending first place.
Thew,
Yeah.
who do you think is like separating the matchup? Who do you think is the stronger team, FlyQuest or Golden Guardians?
Overall, I think FlyQuest is the stronger team, but I think matchups wise, I think that TL would have an easier time against FlyQuest than Golden Guardians.
So you're saying TL picked a harder opponent for them because it's also a harder opponent for TSM.
Yes.
I don't know. I have a hard time with this because I think if you're TSM, or sorry, I think if you're TL, you are just saying who maybe Jet is like 5-heading or whatever, but I think you're just saying who's the weaker team because like let's just pick that team and face them, so that because if you win this, you go to Worlds. So I feel like Golden Guardians, given their record, and FlyQuest, given their record, I feel like it's a pretty easy pick. You just pick Golden Guardians.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty aligned with that. Especially like I remember TL is actually 0-2 against FlyQuest with Turtle, or not. They're not 0-2 with Fly. Actually, I don't remember. I'm
If
tripping.
Mash was in or not.
Yeah, I don't remember. But FlyQuest with Turtle has only lost to C9. I mean, they did lose 2 games to EG, but then won that series.
Which just says
So-
1-1.
Yeah, but one of the games with Mash, so it's whatever. That was not a great point by me. Fuck it. What I'm saying is, I think FlyQuest is scary, and a lot of teams do think that they're decent. Solo, maybe he was just because he doesn't have to prove it, was talking shit. But in his interview, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sad TL didn't pick us because that would have been the freest series." I think he said free as fuck explicitly, but he seems to think that they would have a good matchup versus Team Liquid. And so maybe Team Liquid agrees. Maybe they just think Golden Guardians is a worse team. It's hard to know. And I think the fact that you're setting Golden Guardians to go up against TSM again is more a cherry on top than the actual Sunday.
Well,
Yeah,
Caller?
I just think that overall, I do think that FlyQuest is the stronger team, but I just think that TSM could just overall match up. They had very close games, well, except for their first game against FlyQuest. But they're a completely different team now, and I think that they could move into just. I think GGS was just a good call by TL overall.
Mark, I'm a little. So, do we have a GGS or GG
I think
call?
we have another more matchup specific C9 GGS or a TL GGS call. I think we have a more matchup one too.
Okay, so I'll hold this for that. But I don't know. I like the take a lot, and I love the idea of it. And I
want it to be true.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be so sick if Jet is like, they beat GG, and they send them down, and Jet's in like a post game interview or something with Lotigris is like, I mean, we knew this would happen, and now goodbye TSM, blah ha ha, cackles maniacally. But I just don't. I don't know. But they should definitely claim that, by the way, if it works. If that's how this plays out, if they beat GG goes down, beats TSM, they should 100% claim that this was their plan all along.
Yeah, even if
regardless
it wasn't,
of if it was, because it will get so much attention. What I'm saying is lying is good. Thew,
Yeah.
anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
I do just want to shout out Doublelift. I've been a CLG and Doublelift fan since season 2, and I can feel his frustration from his interview with you. And I just, even though I think TSM will lose in playoffs, I really hope he can prove me wrong. So.
Oh, you think Golden Guardians is going to beat them again?
I do.
Scary.
I don't think they will. But we're gonna have another call for that in a second. Thew,
Here we
thanks so
go.
much. Thanks so much for the
Awesome.
call.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, off Mark goes. I've been trying. I kind of need to use the restroom, and I've noticed that this is maybe the second Hotline League in a row where I really need to pee, and I think part of that is because I have been, Mark, I know you're here and new caller, but let me say this: I have perfectly moisturized lips. However, the way that the lighting hits and the fact that the Elgato capture device adds extra sharpness because it's designed for video games, a ton of people in the comments have said, Travis, your lips are so chapped, please use fucking chapstick. And they're like, you need to hydrate. And so it has made me self-conscious. So I have started drinking a lot of water when I'm streaming. And even though my lips are like literally, I know it's not going to look like it. They're perfectly fine. And this has been an issue I never anticipated having to have. Yeah, I mean, Mark, yours might be. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, caller.
You don't have
Zach
anything to
Hooper.
do with those.
Where are you calling from? Zach?
Yes.
Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on? Oh, I'm calling from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Sorry, I was having trouble hearing you. I think you were moving your mic.
Yeah, it's okay. Sorry, there was a little bit of commotion. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hopefully
Yes.
everything's okay. Florida seems like a sketchy place.
Yeah, it's hot.
Well, that's not what I was referring to. But what do you
Let's
want to
get
talk about on the show?
It's perfect. I was going to say that Golden Guardians and TSM are going to rematch in losers bracket, but I think the result will probably be the same. Maybe
Oh.
not like as hard of a stomp, but I do think that like TSM kind of has some, like it seems like they have some big issues going on, and if they don't get them fixed, it just looks like Golden Guardians are just going to roll them again, I think.
So I love the idea of Golden Guardians going to Worlds. That being said, I agree with you. I know that oftentimes Mark comes in with the analysis and people are like, oh, it's great, he's got an analysis. And I just come in with like my intuition, but my intuition frequently correct. And I just feel like, the LCS is scripted and TSWF going back on TSM. I just feel like it's destiny, it's fate that like they'll come back and beat Golden Guardians in this match, and it's gonna feel really sad for Golden Guardians. And I don't know. That's sort of my impulse. Mark, you're muted.
I'm muted. Yeah, I don't know. This is actually really hard because this is the I'm gonna roast myself a little bit section for being a coward.
Finally,
and not predicting Golden Guardians. I made it 3-2 TSM to do like the whole it's gonna be a close series. But really, like if you go back and watch how I talked about the matchup between TSM and Golden Guardians, I have way more good things to say about Golden Guardians. And like I was citing their major lead and all these different things, and the Haunsters on my All Pro. I think they actually outmatched TSM in 4 out of 5 positions, and the only one that TSM had in their favor was Bjergsen. But as we already kind of talked about in the show, it's not like Damonte is going to ever like going to get blown out and be useless because like I don't think he's a liability. So despite that, for some reason, I'm still predicting TSM, and it's basically because I'm a coward. And
I don't like. I feel as though, and this is what's funny. Whenever I get into these situations, the comments are always like, "Travis is a TL hater. Travis is a TSM fanboy. Travis is whatever." Like, guys, let me be honest with you. I get way more interviews and access with Golden Guardians than with TSM. It would, if I was strictly caring about my own self-interest, it would be better for me if Golden Guardians goes to Worlds than TSM. But I feel like TSM dramatically underperformed what we had seen from them before, and maybe I'm just falling victim to the Jensen situation where like I'm overhyping them, but like I don't think that is the way that TSM has played for the most of the second half of the split, and I think like they did not look as bad on the Dignitas day, and I feel like they will step it up and it'll be a much closer series. And maybe the idea is it's going to go like 50-50 or something, and then in the 5th game it goes really close or something. But I just feel like TSM will make it work.
I mean, so yeah, that's what I thought too, and that's why I'm saying I'm biased, and you're biased. We're going off name recognition and historical bias over like what my eyeballs tell me, which is not smart. Like I said, I thought 4 out of 5 positions on Golden Guardians were better than their counterparts this split. I thought that their major lead stats were better. I thought that they had big problems in the mid game, which is probably the one thing I was thinking that TSM was better in. But even then, it's not like that's a strength of TSM. Their mid game is not like insane or anything. So if I was like, there's matchup concerns, like, TSM beat Golden Guardians. I think it was the last week of the split too. But Golden Guardians had a 4K gold lead. And if you're going to tell me, like, okay, that's going to consistently happen. Golden Guardians going to get 4K gold lead. Of course, I'm going to pick Golden Guardians to win the series. And then they 3-0'd them. I think I was totally just like giving into the bias and the pressures of like predicting the upset. And I was a total coward. That said, this time, I think TSM had a lot to learn from that, and I think it'll be closer. I think the thing that they abused in the bot lane with like them not playing Morgana well will hopefully get fixed. Because you can give up Morgana and play Karma, which is what Dig did to still punish them. You can give up Morgana, play Nami. You can play a number of enchanter supports into it that do quite well. And so like I can't believe that TSM is going to get that blasted in the bot lane again. Even though I do think FBI and Huhi are a better lane. So like I would actually say I would expect Golden Guardians to win, and I'll probably actually predict them this time if this matchup does happen. But I actually feel strangely like even though I predicted TSM last time, I had better feelings about Golden Guardians in that match than this time, because I think TSM can like you're given what you did wrong, so now you can change it.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I just feel like Golden Guardians I feel like they have a more solid game plan right now. The draft
for sure.
in their series against TSM, the draft for TSM was like kind of janky, especially in that last game. It's like in like the meta of the series kind of seemed like, okay, Bjergsen is like literally hard carrying us 1v9. Let's put him on tank set. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know Set's like a playmaking champion and stuff, but it just feels like Bjergsen 1v9, like Golden Guardians just has too many tools to deal with that, I think.
And by the way, if Damonte clips this part of the show and tweets it out after Golden Guardians beats TSM, I'm not even mad.
I just want
to shout out to all the Twitter fans.
Or Golden Guardians. I said I'm probably predicting Golden Guardians this time. What is he going to clip?
Wait, you are?
Yeah,
you're just saying that for
probably.
the tweet.
No.
He said that.
Oh, I thought you were saying like even that this time you think it's TSM that's going to take it.
No, I was saying even though I predicted TSM last time, and I felt better about Golden Guardians, I will predict Golden Guardians this time, even though I feel better about TSM.
Just to balance it out.
Yeah,
I feel like this is really disappointing, Mark, because you are literally hedging your bet as so much as possible by saying I think TSM Golden Guardians, but I will predict Golden Guardians, because guess what?
I didn't say I think TSM will take it. I said it'll be a closer series, and I feel better about TSM than I felt going into that one, even though I predicted them, because I'm a coward. Okay. I'm not a coward.
So you still think TSM is not going to Worlds?
No.
And Golden Guardians will be the nail in their coffin.
Yes, and I think one of the things, to the caller's point about some of the stuff with Bjergsen's and TSM's playstyle, I think that they have the least defined playstyle of the teams seriously contending for Worlds. Between TL, C9, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, and TSM. TSM is the one where I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to do. And in their series versus Dig, they had 3 different people step up to be the main carry. There was the Sentry game for Bjergsen, there was the Nidalee game, and then there was the Broken Blade counterpick game. But I don't actually think they play any of those 3 styles particularly well compared to the other top teams playing their styles. I think that's one of the biggest concerns I still have for them, even though I think they'll adapt to some of the draft problems that they had in terms of what was going on in the bot lane. I'm still not convinced they have a great play style. And it's basically Bjergsen carry us, please, which is what Haunter said in his interview, which is absolutely, how I think a lot of people feel and why he got a lot of credit. As much as Jensen might say it was overrated, maybe, but at the very least, it's a fairly shared sentiment among pro players as well. You can see that all pro ballot voting as well did not see that like this was not a caster led. There's actually more.
My interview with Double Lift, he was like, it's literally just Bjergsen doing everything he can, and like that.
Yeah.
He said that at this point in time is his biggest motivation because he just would feel so bad for Bjergsen to be playing at this level, and they just don't make it to Worlds.
I'm sorry, Dad.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
I'm gonna say this now because it'll be too mean to say it next week if Golden Guardians just beat TSM. But like, it is public information now that Double Lift did not even consider like talking to Golden Guardians and was completely unwilling to talk to them or consider them at all. So if you get eliminated in playoffs by losing to Golden Guardians in a best of 5 series twice, and this is a team you refuse to even have a discussion with about like joining their team from TL because you exclusively talk to TSM, that's a tough moment.
I mean, the funny thing is, and I said this to you as well when you told me that initially, is, well, the other thing that's different between the two teams is also the FBI is better than Double Lift. So I don't know if they would beat TSM if Double Lift was on Golden Guardians.
Yeah, I would just say there's a lot at stake for. So I mean, he said the headline for the interview I released today is like, double elimination. Oh, definitely possibly saved my career or whatever. And like, I think that is how he is thinking about this series right now is like, and I'm not saying he's going to retire or anything like that, but it's just like his reputation is more on the line now than it has been in a very, very long time.
Since basically they got relegated. Or where they had to play in relegation, excuse me.
CLG, I would say, having to play on relegation.
Right, that's the one I'm talking about. Not the time he subbed in for TL.
Yes.
That was
probably like what? I think that was like 2014, I think, or something. So.
End of 2014, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it is wild. And I do think people will not talk about that as much because I do think everyone has universally said we're not going to talk too much about the Double Lift stuff because people have Double Lift fatigue, but man, it is going to be a wild weekend potentially.
I mean, especially if FBI bot gaps them again. If Golden Guardians just win based off like better team play and stuff, then I don't think it'll be quite as much of a story. It'll still be a big one, but
yeah.
I feel like the series will be closer at the very least, right? Just because TSM has had it'll be 2 weeks now to like recognize their issues and
it'll be
and Golden Guardians, assuming, okay, I mean, we're just assuming, by the way, that Golden Guardians is going to lose to TL, which is like an interesting thing that we're all doing, but I think, whatever, maybe we'll all look like idiots whenever Golden Guardians crushes TL and qualifies for Worlds, but
that'd be fun.
But I do think it'll be interesting because TSM will be coming in off of their victory against Dig, which maybe they didn't feel good about, but at least is like a better feeling than Golden Guardians, who, like, let's say TL crushes them. That's going to be tough for them.
And in a lot of ways, it is easier for TSM to prep.
Yeah.
Because they can basically prep assuming it's Golden Guardians and then adjust if they need to. Whereas Golden Guardians they have less time to specifically prep for TL. Then there's that, if you lose, you're probably sad. And then you have to play with only 1 day to prep for TSM. So it is a little unfortunate, but I mean,
do you think Golden Guardians has any chance against TL?
I think.
I think go through bot lane. I mean, I think FBI, like, not that Tactical's bad or anything. Tactical's great, but
yeah, I just like core JJ is not going to have a support pool problem. Like that was what happened. Was like, okay, we either side of Kate Ash. If we pick the Morg, we get countered. If they pick Morg, I don't have a counter for it, and like. That's not going to happen for core JJ, as well as the fact that I think their strengths are in totally different areas. Golden Guardians has a really good early game and really good laners. So does TL. They just don't play aggressive early. They actually still get leads early game, and then they don't make mistakes. And then they beat you in mid game, which is still Golden Guardians' weakest point. They did, I think it was game 2 in that series. They had like a 6K gold lead that slipped away, and then it had that crazy double TP backdoor thing. I think the weaknesses of Golden Guardians still exist, even though they 3-0'd TSM.
Yeah. I'll say this, Peter, my best friend, etc. I'm just going to address this because I've seen it a lot in Twitch chat or people saying like I'm lying because like I would feel really bad for Peter not making it to Worlds. Peter has been to Worlds a lot, and if he doesn't make it, I'm confident he will bounce back next year. I do not think that this is the end of his career. I would feel worse for Bjerg not making it to Worlds
3 years in a row.
Yes, I think that's really tough. And I think for Golden Guardians, I have a lot of friends over there, and I have seen, Hunter, one of my closest friends, we've worked together at 2 different companies, runs that org, and Spellsy and I work together, and there's a lot of I think Damonte is great, etc. So I would feel really happy for Golden Guardians going, and I think it would be good for the league to have that sort of story after Golden Guardians has been beat down for so long. So I don't think, I have a lot of personal feelings on both sides of the aisle, and so people trying to pin it down as like he's a TSM shell, that's why he's voting for TL because of double, or TSM because of double lift is, I think, a poor read on me as a person.
I only decide based off how many of their people are in our Twitch chats and interact with us. And that's Golden Guardians easily.
Yes.
So sorry, TSM. I haven't
Yeah.
seen Parth in here in a hot minute. He
That's
hates
true.
us now.
Travis admits on camera he hates every team that isn't GG or TSM. All right, well, I'm going to burn this blue plushie. Anyway, Zach.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts before we say goodbye?
Not much. I love watching Damonte play, so more power to him if he can make it. Loving following his story, but yeah, it was fun.
Thank you for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to the next caller. And Arrow says, "What do you mean? Sorry, TSM. We're not going to play TSM. Lamau." Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
Yeah, I was asking him. I was asking a narrow question for people who don't know. I was saying, since he's here, I was asking a narrow. How do you feel about the prep situation if you do lose? It's a short turnaround time, etc. I was just curious if it was like, whatever. I'd rather have 2 chances, and I'm happy about it, or like, eh.
He says, "IDC about the prep part. TBH. It's chill and punishment for losing." There you go.
That's probably the most narrow answer you could ever.
Yeah.
Like you just hear like,
I
fuck.
don't care about.
But it's kind of stupid. We just potentially do it.
I mean, yeah, it's just like if you lose, it's just whatever. That's like we deserve it. You know what I mean? But it's kind of stupid. We potentially just do a rematch.
I don't know if I can get deep. I'm trying to get deeper and I can't do it. Just like keep tucking my chin further against my neck to push my at.
Wait, does this make me sound more high pitched or low pitch? What I'm doing right now.
What, leaning in?
No. Do you hear? There's no change
There's
in my
no
voice?
change. Not through Skype. Maybe
right, well,
through.
this isn't doing it. Hello? Is this doing anything? All right. Well, this sound mixer, but you hear this, right?
What the? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the next caller.
All right. Got to figure this stuff out. All right. Let's go. Okay, so Nanuko 111, 20 months. Thank you for the prime. Blackburn 24. Thank you. Lane Plox gifted a sub to Ovally. Lucky Stuff Twitch. Let's see. Darth Zombie 13. Thank you. Where are we? He says Boomer Hours. Thank you. For Twitch chat always so supportive of me. That's what I'm here. Thank you everyone who's subbing, by the way. You are better people if you sub. And if you want right now, you can actually hover your cursor over the screen. Oh wait, is it turned off? Oh my god, I gotta turn that back on. That extension. I think if you hover over the screen, you're supposed to see a blue crown. There we go. I fixed it. All right, let's try this again. Can you guys hover your cursor over the screen? Did it save? I hope it's saved. You might see a blue crown if you do. It's on. Okay,
we
perfect.
have our caller, by the way.
Oh, I kept looking. You must have just joined. Indy Skies is here. Indy, where are you calling from?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. How's it going in Indianapolis? I've actually never been.
I have no idea. I'm not calling from Indianapolis. I'm calling from Sarnia, Ontario.
Mark, do you realize what you did?
No, what'd I do?
Got 'em, boys.
Oh, I don't even care anymore.
Welcome to the show, Blue Jay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about the players that I think should be in the conversation for who got robbed for the All-Pro voting. I think Jensen, Aphro, PoE, and Solo should all be part of that discussion.
Definitely feel like FlyQuest was underrepresented, which is a statement I thought I would never say in my life. But
True.
Wait, who was underrepresented?
FlyQuest across the All Pro.
I thought they did okay. They had 3 out of their 5 positions.
Let me pull it up again.
So
Santorum with
Santorum
second
got
team.
second.
Ignar and PoE third team, right?
Oh yeah, PoE and Niski tied.
Yep, first tie ever.
Oh, is
Speaking
that
of how
true?
close it was, yeah.
All right, and then Blue Jay, who did you say?
I said Jensen, Solo, Power of Evil, and Aphromu.
Okay, so you would have liked to see Power of Evil higher than third.
Yes. Yeah, I had him second, but
Okay.
yeah.
I feel like that is and Jensen got second, which I think implies that you think Jensen should have been first, and
yes.
PoE should have been second, and Bjergsen should have been third.
Yep.
You had all this
but
goodwill with this Hotline League community, and I feel like you're just blowing it right now.
yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid to share my opinion. The thing is, though, like, I'm okay with people voting for Bjergsen. I'm not happy about it, but I'm like, all right. Whereas, like, the last time, like, Bjergsen got MVP over Jensen, that was, like, huge robbery. But this time around, like, I could see where the Bjergsen voters are coming from. But I would say that Jensen had a much more, a good split throughout the whole split, whereas I would say Bjergsen probably about 3/4, like, more like, the second half was great, if I'm being honest, but I think he wasn't as strong as Jensen was in the first half. If we want to go just with the Jensen take there,
I think the Jensen take is actually. I mean, I understand it was close. There's a period of the split, like you're saying, where Jensen was also an MVP candidate. So, like, I think it's hotly debated. Jensen actually had the most points on the second All-Pro ballot, so I think there is definitely a sentiment among people, and some of the LCS casters I know had Jensen over Bjerg. So I don't think it's that insane of a take. I think some of the third team ones are actually like where I struggled the most. First team I didn't struggle with too much, but like you're talking about Aphro, but Huhi I think was actually super good as well, and
yeah.
I think Core JJ had him as his first All Pro vote because you can't vote for yourself. I think I saw that. So Aphro might even be 5th. And there were a number of people who I'm like, oh, that's the 5th best person. And I actually think they did pretty well. Like Turtle he just didn't play enough games for me to vote for him, but he's like number 1 in KDA. He has insane stats and like his kills participation pre-15. His CSD is slightly negative, but Ignar has the highest roam percent. Like if he played that well the entire split 18 games and they finished, top 3 pushing for top 2, then like he easily could have actually maybe edged out. I think I had Doublelift as my 3rd. But like even then, I also could have put Tactical in there, and like it was fucking hard.
I like your point about Turtle because I think like especially it's pretty universal across a lot of across the whole league that like it's really hard to change fan perception of people that have been around for so long. And so even if Turtle did play the whole season, I would not be surprised if he kept up those numbers, if he wasn't put on top 3. I wouldn't have been surprised at all, because so many people have like a preconceived like idea of how a player is once they've been around for that long, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Like Bjergsen, for example, honestly.
And it also has to do with just how the split was, where you have some insanely dominant team through the first 9 who then falls off a cliff. And it's like, whoa, how do I rate these players now? Because they still finished second, but they look like shit recently. And like, do I weight the strength of their victories in the first half where they were absolutely obliterating people? Or do I just care that they're winning? Because other teams had better second halves technically, but they weren't more dominant, and like you start getting into a lot of these tougher questions where normally the number 1 team's the number 1 team basically the whole split, and it's pretty easy voting. This was not one of those splits.
Can I just say the way that Riot releases the voting results page is just painful.
It's
like
brutal, man. It's really
so
fucking
actually
bad.
hard to see who voted for what. Like you're just maybe I'm getting old, but like, god damn, this is awful. Like, please just make it a shared spreadsheet next time. It's really bad. That's really, really bad. Sorry. Anyway, that's off topic. I was just looking at the stuff. Go ahead.
Sorry. I want to talk a little bit about how you said Aphro could be fifth, because I honestly think, I don't know, maybe this is a little too aggro, but I honestly think out of all of the people that I just named, I think he was the least, he was the most underserved or underappreciated, I guess is the right word. And one of the reasons why I think that is because there was this argument that Someday was so good on such a bad team, and if that's not what Aphromu was, then I don't know what Aphromu was this split, because I thought he was unreal on playmakers, man, like unreal. And I thought that like he kind of had coin flip Dardoch. Like Dardoch was either really good or he was running it. Same thing with Phoenix, I would say. And I know we talked earlier. You talked earlier in the show about not wanting to just hard flame, but I didn't think Viper was very good at all this split, and I thought Lorlo should have been playing there.
I think if Dig's bot lane was as, because I mean they had Johnson, who a lot of people felt was pretty good. I mean he made
he was great.
Yeah, I feel like if Dig's bot lane was as good as you think they are, Dig would have not finished where they did.
Man, now you're gonna make me get into draft, and we can't do that. That's way off topic. But like, I think Dig was way better than what they showed this weekend.
I think this, to your point, I think you're not necessarily wrong. I think because it plays back to your point about recent, like what people's overall thoughts are. I think there's been a feeling that Aphro is washed, for the last half year or so, and then the opinion changed to, oh, he's not washed, he's actually playing well. But that's not necessarily all the way up to voting for him for my All Pro. As well as he is on a losing team. It is really hard to look good on a losing team, especially at support. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But I think it was competitive enough at the position that like the lack of wins do factor in at that point. So I agree he was actually quite good this split, and I feel bad that his team wasn't good enough to make him able to shine more. And like you're saying, these drafts and things, but part of MVP for me, or not MVP, well, it includes MVP as well, but it's performance. Yeah, when I vote, I'm often taking into account performance, not just who I think is this good or that good. It's not power ranking. I try to avoid that to keep it more about what happened this split. And I think players on better teams have more consistent performances, partially due to their team being better. But at the end of the day, I can't deny that someone, I think like Ignar or Huhi or whoever had more good performances than Aphro and had more of an impact in their team's wins.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I don't necessarily agree, but I see where you're coming from for sure.
And it definitely favors winning teams when you think about it like that way. And I acknowledge that's one of the issues thinking that way.
You make me kind of wonder about Someday then. Do you think Someday was put a little high? I don't remember exactly what you voted. Like, since I was making the argument that Someday, he was on a bad team, but he performed so well, and Aphro didn't get the same love. Do you think that Someday legit just performed that much better than Aphro to make it to, what was it? Yeah, second All-Pro?
I think this once again ties into your point about perception. No one has ever been like, Someday's washed.
True. Yeah.
The narrative around him is always stop putting him on tanks, even if he can play them well. His team needs carries. And then when he plays carries, his win rate was actually quite high, depending on what you count Renekton. If you include Renekton, it's like a 75% win rate on carries. If you don't include Renekton, it's more like 50%, which is still better than their actual win rate. My point is simply that he carried more games when he was put in positions to carry, which is just not a fair comparison to make for support who can almost never carry games.
Mm-hmm.
Prof in the chat says, or Prof No Good says, wow, Mark and Travis cannot give Tactical any props. Claims about me, somebody who put Tactical number 2. Over double if to everyone claims I'm like super biased to, but I'm not the person who put double if number 1 is ADC.
I would have been really disappointed if Double Lift was on this list. Sorry if I'm pissing off more fans of Hotline League again, but I don't think Double Lift deserved it.
I think
good.
You're going to have a hard time finding people after his Golden Guardians performance.
I mean, I put him third All-Pro. Definitely felt bad after that fucking series, but
yeah.
I definitely try and take some things into account, like the substitutions that are occurring in bot lanes. So, like, I didn't hit Ignar that hard for playing with Mash. Mash was statistically and eye test wise, and I've said this a couple of times, probably one of the worst bot laners in the league. So, like, I kind of gave him a bit of a pass for some of those games where he did like Ignar did not look good and they're getting bot dove 2v2 or like 4v2 whatever it is. Like I admit that I kind of hand wave some of those away with like it's not a great situation. And some of the same stuff with double lift. I was like, okay, obviously there's issues with this team. They're swapping supports out, whatnot. So maybe I gave double lift a little bit too much leeway with some of that. I can say that maybe I did, but it was close. It was super fucking close.
I definitely think they need to release this before playoff starts, which I know they normally do, and they didn't because the schedule changed this year. But like, it's really rough. Whatever you have, like a best of 5, and a player looks really bad or a player looks really good in that, and then the next day, and people are all thinking about that series, and then the next day the votes hit, and everyone's like, "Wow!"
I mean, MVP is always the worst.
Yes, because it's just like. Maybe that player looks great or bad or something. And it's just...
If Bjerg loses, like let's say hypothetically Bjerg gets MVP. I don't know, by the way. I'm just saying it's just the most extreme example I can think. If he gets MVP but gets knocked out by Golden Guardians here again, like the shit everyone will catch for voting for him, even though it's a regular season award, will be through the roof.
Mm-hmm. I know that like we got to move on to other colors and stuff like that. I just want to talk real quick about Solo because we didn't touch on him very much. Do you think he got robbed at all or not really?
I mean, I had him as my first All-Pro, which I know is unconventional, but I definitely
let's go, Travis.
I definitely feel like FlyQuest is definitely in the place that they are because of him. So I know that's controversial. I didn't see too many other people that did that, but I think Solo performed a lot, and I kind of maybe it's bad of me, but I'm starting to kind of possibly over-index on FlyQuest players just because I feel like FlyQuest, especially in summer, was a team in which people just didn't pay very much attention to them, especially because they snuck in towards the end.
Well, and they had Viper initially, and then swapped to Solo, and then they were still messing around with that lineup even in playoffs.
So I think that I spent a lot of time looking more critically at FlyQuest, and perhaps Solo shouldn't have been first. Maybe he should have been second or third. But I don't know. I thought a lot about how the fact that they finished third the split, and I think it is unfortunate that they did not get as much attention or talked about as maybe they could be.
I think it was hard to vote Solo over Licorice with like the CSD numbers that we saw all split long of Licorice just smashing everyone, man. Like no one had a plus CSD except Licorice was at like 20, and I know that probably fell off because they started losing and stuff. Yeah. But like, damn,
I had a whole segment I was going to do that showed all the things Licorice was doing in terms of how he traded, how he froze waves, how he called for help and stuff. And I had this whole segment planned, and then they fucking fell apart.
Yeah. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason I demoted Licorice was because I feel like there were games in which he was the worst performing member of the team or was the liability. Like I feel like he received a lot of criticism in the second half of the split.
I think Kennen game, and that was mostly
that was
in
the
my
only
opinion.
one.
Yeah.
The Kennen game we got clapped by Broken Blade counter pick, whatever. But like the problems I always thought was more mid jungle and just general team synergy. So like whatever, he still finished with plus 13, which is I think the highest.
That's
in the
really
league.
good. Yeah.
But at 20, it was legitimately the highest of all time. And if he held on to that, I was ready to just like have a 5-minute hype him up segment about his laning, and then I might still do it, but it takes on a totally different context, and it's more difficult to talk about.
Bluejay, we do have to move on to the next callers, and I really need to use the restroom. So, is there anything you want to say?
I'll simp out this week, guys. Go subscribe to YouTube. He's trying to get 200k subs. He's at like 190 something. Hit the sub button.
192.
You know where you guys should really
go?
A
while.
Is Travis Gafford Books. That's where you should really go. His YouTube channel for his league content is dying. No one should go there anymore. Where everyone should go is I'm spamming it in Twitch chat. Go sub to that. That's a great YouTube channel right there.
All right, go next caller.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys. Hopefully next week.
Yep.
See you guys.
Yep. Mark,
someone in Twitch chat just goes, "What's a book?"
Mark, can you talk about that for 5 seconds while I go pee?
Just pee your pants, dude. Who cares? It's in quarantine. No one's gonna judge you.
But we will. It's happened. I don't want to talk about it. I'll be right back.
All right.
Talk
so
to Twitch chat.
Travis has started a book YouTube channel. There's only 2 videos right now, but he and I are big fans of fantasy books, and it's his channel. He's going to do it mostly himself, but there are a couple that we're going to collab on. We just did one for The Way of Kings, which we're both hot on. Plus, the 4th book in that series is coming out in a couple months. So, leading up to it, we're reviewing all the books in that series that have come out so far, as well as going to be talking about big theories in that. So, if you guys are literate, that's sick. I really hope you are. And if you also happen to use your literate talents to read fantasy books, you should definitely check out Travis's channel that I'm spamming again, so that you can dub there. And it's a good time. It's a 45-minute review, bit of a recap as well. I think in the future we'll do a bit less of a recap and a bit more reviewy and try and cut it down a little bit. But it's pretty good. It does have spoilers. There's full book spoilers. We're only spoiling like the book that we're on, so you don't have to, like, if you're only on The Way of Kings, you don't need to worry about Words of Radiant spoilers or anything like that. So we'll keep doing that. I think we're gonna record another one. So hopefully you guys like that. What are your thoughts on King Killer Chronicles? That was the book that got me back into reading at all. I got an audiobook version. I shouldn't even really say reading because I'm illiterate like you guys. But yeah, Name of the Wind was the book that got me back into caring about stuff. And on review, like, there's some more problematic things and elements that don't hold up quite as well, but the writing's still god tier, and it has a lot of the things that people enjoy about fantasy, and it's easy to like.
And by the way, they don't sponsor the show, but you can do free free book in the chat right now and get a link to get a free audiobook if you want to do that. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
Yeah, let's do it.
Somebody says, I'm pretty excited now to watch these Travis books online. Oh, yeah, the YouTube channel? Yeah, look, there's a link right now. You have to copy paste it because if you have ad block, because ad block will kill it. Lord Goof, thank you for the sub, and OC Releaser, thank you for the Prime. I love Trojan condoms, thank you for the 5 months. And I don't know if that's Trojan trying to do a covert marketing campaign, but Feels Batman 1, thank you as well. Merchant of Soul, 14 months. And TomSoloMid is here. TomSoloMid, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Long Island.
From Long Island. For a second, I thought you might have been Tom Shu trying to secret your way in here, but you have a different voice, I feel like.
I hope so.
Have you been on the show? Have you been on the show before?
I've been on 2 times before.
Gotcha. Well, welcome back to the show. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Surprisingly, not TomSoloMid. I'm going to talk about FlyQuest, is specifically their best of 5 against C9. I think that FlyQuest is going to win because Cloud9 slumped in the second half of the season. Plus, a lot of people are kind of forgetting this. A lot of FlyQuest losses this split were with MASH over Wild Turtle, specifically 4 out of the 6. And if Wild Turtle played those games, I could definitely see a world where FlyQuest finish, like, if they get like 3 out of those 4 losses with MASH, they're tied for first with Team Liquid. Then they go to a tiebreaker. But that's, like, obviously hindsight. But, like, I still think that right now FlyQuest is better than Cloud9.
So you do know that the losses still had Turtle in them, both of them, to C9.
I did not know that, actually.
Oh,
yeah. So they're
hey,
undefeated
caller, it was
against
great
everyone
having you
but
on.
C9.
Oh, damn. My bad.
So, I mean, the thing is, I think the point still stands a lot about the slumping and whatnot. And I think you can say that the first time they lost with Turtle, it was during that time where Turtle wasn't playing as well. And that's partially why he got benched. So I actually don't read into the first loss too much to kind of exonerate you a little bit. The second one is a little bit more concerning, but you can still say they're maybe ramping up or it was a draft problem or whatnot. I don't think that there is something inherently wrong with FlyQuest style for why they're a terrible matchup into C9.
I mean, I'm just going to kind of reiterate. Like, I know we talked about MASH, and your point is, but I do feel like, and Turtle has even said this, that MASH coming in helped make Turtle better in the second half. So,
right. So, but that's what I'm saying. You can kind of not excuse the first one, but
Yeah.
realize that MASH or Turtle wasn't playing as well back then, and they're better now.
Also, to go on the point of like FlyQuest getting 0-2'd by Cloud9 in the regular season, that was like right like the week before Cloud9 started their big slump. Am I right in saying that or no?
I think it was they lost one game to 100 Thieves. It was their first loss. I think they went 1-1 that weekend. Then they went 1-1 again the FlyQuest weekend, and then I think they went 0-2 for the first time in 2 years or something. So it was a slow. It wasn't like they instantly started sucking. It was like they're experimenting a little bit more with Senna and Wukong and whatnot before that happened.
It's
but
yeah,
I
it's
do.
a tough call because the premise was slightly off base.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll give you some more things. I think one of the problems was C9 players were talking about. I forget which one said it, but that like playing versus FlyQuest was easy because they didn't experiment with draft. And that's one of the things I didn't love about Solo was for a period of time he played like 2 or 3 champs. It was like Set, Ornn, and that was it. And maybe he played one other. I don't remember. And I do think that they were pretty formulaic with their drafts. And now they're doing a lot more. I think I like the fact that they played. Oh god, I'm blanking. Swain and Kog'Maw. I like the Gragas support. I think that they're trying new things. Yeah, Santorin still doesn't have the biggest champion pool, but he's kind of the rock for the team. And I think they will match up better now that C9 can't maybe prep as hard if they have more tricks up their sleeve. So I think that they actually have a decent combined kill per minute kind of average. They generally are active. They're just not super insane compared to like some of the more early game oriented teams like Fly or Golden Guardians and C9. I'm still a little concerned though with that EG game. I don't think EG was playing insanely well for how much FlyQuest was struggling to beat them.
Yeah,
Who do you think's going to win, Travis? Big intuition. The big intuition.
Cloud9.
That wasn't very fun. You didn't even give any reason for your intuitions. Can you reason intuition?
I just feel in the same way that this is like a PLG giving fans false hope thing. I think EG, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, they're all here to add drama to what we know is inevitable. Death, taxes, C9, TL, TSM making worlds. I mean, I don't actually believe
TSM is making it as well.
No, I mean, I think there's a good chance they do. I do think that either C9 or TSM won't. If you actually ask me, like I do think we'll have somebody surprised in either Golden Guardians or FlyQuest, probably not EG, but I don't know. I find it so hard to ever bet against C9 or TL or TSM just because of how strong these teams have been historically. And perhaps that's me putting too much like what narrative-based analysis together. I get that, but my God, things always end up looking like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I kind of agree with you though that TL feels like the biggest shoe-in for Worlds. I think they're the least likely to bust her out.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, maybe Golden Guardians beats them, but it's hard to imagine them then losing to TSM as well.
Well, especially because they're a generally stable team these days, it feels like. I mean, they looked a little wonky halfway through the split, but like they don't seem very coin flippy. They seem very slow and steady. They seem like it's not like, wow, TL just looked like dog crap that game. What happened? You know, like they're not gonna
we have one more caller for TL versus Golden Guardians where they actually talk about them. So we'll get into that.
You baited me. You're like,
sorry, that was my bad.
Yes,
I did lead us down this road.
All right, as long as you can admit it. TomSoloMid, sorry, there's not more to talk about.
It's all good.
But is there anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
I'm just gonna shout out my boy Paul. I think he just joined the stream. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Have
Paul,
a good day, guys.
Hang on. What's Paul's story?
Oh, Paul. He is a big fan of LS. He watches his stream every day.
All right, I'm
big fanboy. Hates Black Cleaver. Hates Morello.
Yeah, I was hoping that Paul was a big fan of.
I'm a big fan of Triple Cleaver on the team. That got my blood pumping. Let me tell you.
Thanks, TomSoloMid.
That's the real shopkeeper stonks right there. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you for the call. Off mark goes to grab our last caller.
I'm playing with my cat though.
you normally by this point in time in the show, you're like, hey, it's after 10. I gotta go. The girlfriend needs me. She gives me a strict limit. I have to be gone. Off this show.
Your cat have to be gone. Jerry Cat's here.
You already pulled them? You didn't give me a chance to simp out for the hype train that's happening right now. The scam train.
This hype train fucking sucks. It's not even going to make it. 94% of the way there. More like 0%. No one wants to sub to this garbage stream.
Derry is here. Derry,
Paul, go take your sub and give it to LS.
Derry, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Australia.
From Australia. We're ending with an international caller. How exciting. How's things in Australia?
Pretty good. Things are mostly back to normal with COVID, but well, unless you live in Victoria. But
I've heard Melbourne is getting bonkers.
Melbourne's not too good, but I live in Queensland, so I don't have to deal with that.
Ah, Queensland, the land of the Queen.
Have you been to Australia?
Yes. I really want to go back. I went there in 2014 after the World's Tour.
I went to Bondi Beach, and I did not think it was that cool.
Oh, I thought it was cool. I like Sydney. Reminds me a lot of San Diego's things. And I'm from San Diego, so it's just
the only thing that I noticed different was I could buy Cuban cigars. Otherwise, it just felt like America with funny accents.
Anyway,
which is not.
Derry, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was I think that Golden Guardians will beat TL this weekend, and I think it's because they have a much more proactive early game, and I think that's been TL's weakness. And I also think they've shown that they're very good at prepping with drafts. And I think given the best of 5 format, I think they'll have a better time prepping for just one team rather than 2 as they had to in the regular season.
Thanks, Mark. 94%. You're not even a sub, and you're asking other people to sub. Do you not even
have no money.
Let me throw 100 bits at the past 10 seconds. You know, you do have a lot of money. It's all locked away in an invoice that it's like 6 month long invoice. Anyway. So the other thing, Mark, as we're lumping criticism on you for 1, trying to kill my hype train, 2, not sending an invoice, 3, you just tried to sneak the Golden Guardian simp in for the 4th week in a row. Why? It's like we can't go a show without. They're the new. You would think they're TSM for as much as we get their fans on the show.
Their fans are just as obnoxious, right?
I don't think
fucking
that's true.
Golden Guardians fans.
Anyway, oh man, there was one take on the TSM subreddit this weekend that I was looking at that was bonkers. I wish I could remember it because it was about how we've never gotten a chance to see Bjergsen play at Worlds because all the mid laners, including Faker, who would lane against him, all become a second jungler because they're all too afraid to face him. It was an amazing take. Yes.
All right. Can we talk about
Derry? Thinks that Golden Guardians is going to beat TL.
Yep. Well, I mean, broadly speaking, right? I feel GGS actually play like a team, and I think that team synergy has been improving pretty consistently since Damonte was added to the roster. In contrast, Team Liquid, I think I feel like watching them, it feels like they're winning through individual talent rather than coordinated team play, creative drafts, or creative macro. Like in the regular season, they quite often, I think, lose early game or barely win early game, and they mostly win when the other team makes a giant mistake or core JJ pulls off some game-changing play or mechanic checks the other team, and then they take over from there. So I think because of that, it leaves GGS a pretty good window, I think, to prep for that rather inactive early game, and I think that's a pretty good strength to have in a best of 5.
Fuck, I had such a good point when I cut Travis off like 5 minutes ago. And I can't remember it. It was something that was going to build up Golden Guardians a little bit more, but then I was going to undercut it and still say Team Liquid. But I can't remember what the point was.
That's what you get.
Yeah, that's my B, dude. In general, I think there are a lot of positives for... Oh, there you go. There's a lot of subs. What?
Troll old friend just sent 20 subs. That's what it was. I was trying to find this TSM thing because people were saying I was being misleading, but thank you, Troll Old Fun. Anyway, we're gonna stop getting interrupted. the end of the show. Let's just finish this baby out.
Okay, I think Golden Guardians has a lot of great things going for them. I think that they should be able to push TL a little bit, but I kind of said it earlier. I'm concerned about their mid game still. I don't think that problem's totally fixed up, and I think that they will struggle against TL, who are pretty consistent and are hard to get advantages against. There won't be that bot gap, I don't think. And I think come mid-game, TL will not be far enough up behind that they won't be able to come back and make some good team fights happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because it feels as though, the hype around Golden Guardians is mostly around their bot lane, a little bit in the jungle, and people say good things about Damonte and Hunter, but like, it's just hard to imagine them going up against, like, for context, we saw Treats and Peter. Like, Peter had one of the worst performances in his career. It's hard to imagine that FBI and Huhi are going to get that same opportunity against Tactical and especially against Core JJ. I know I'm kind of reiterating what you were just saying about the podcast, but it's just like it's hard to imagine as many. Like, Golden Guardians really capitalized on a lot of opportunities they were able to get against TSM, and I just really don't see TL letting that opportunity come in. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I feel like TL just kind of like starves people out, right? Like, they're not. I don't know.
I don't think they'll.
Where did it go?
I don't think they'll get bot gapped as much as Doublelift and Treats did, but I think TSM in that particular series had a very predictable draft, which is pretty unfortunate considering they had some of the more creative drafts in the regular season. But that's kind of reflective of TL because their drafts are pretty predictable, right? Like, it seems that GGS prepped pretty well for a Caitlyn first pick. They prepped pretty well for a meta, like a meta Zia, and I think that's kind of what TL has.
So you think Anero's just going to out big brain Jet? That's your take?
I do.
Impossible.
I mean, Jet seems to. I think even in an interview with you, Jet says, "Well, yes, I know,"
because he won't come on the show in the beginning.
I think Jet said, yes. I think it might have been a show on the LCS interview, but he did say, yes, my drafts are predictable, but I think the safe way is if it's safe and it'll win. I don't see a reason to change.
Yeah, I know people in chat are saying, "Wait, it's Kane." I get it, but it's fun to say Jet. Yeah, I don't know. I think part of the reason TL can stick with those picks is because they just win with them, right? And so I think that's part of the reason why they're predictable is because they go with those picks, but it's sort of like if those are stable and they win and it just always works, like it's probably okay that they're predictable, right? Because they're still going to take it out.
But it works because the other teams did some pretty monstrous errors around 35 minutes or something. Because that's the.
I mean, earlier in the split, that's how it was, but I don't feel like people were saying that about TL towards the end.
Yeah.
People stopped saying, around week 8, maybe week 7, people stopped saying, "Wow, TL won that game because the other team lost it."
Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. Actually,
you're welcome, Mark.
It was about Team Liquid have actually cut off 5 minutes off their average win time in the back half of the split. They were at 37, they're down to 32. It was something like that. It's an insane actual improvement in their win time, and even though their kills per minute haven't jumped a ton, their major lead and major deficits both went in better areas. So those mistakes that they were making that I think a lot of us associate with Team Liquid basically disappeared in the second half. Which is one of the things I think working against Golden Guardians, despite all the good points for Golden Guardians.
Do you think the fact that the
I thought you were saying you were going to say something that was going to help Golden Guardians?
That's probably why I couldn't remember it until you said this, because it wasn't that. I was misleading myself trying to remember.
An arrow in the chat was like, "Yeah, finally he remembered it." Wait, what?
It's just
I got scammed.
I said I thought it was going to undercut whatever my point was about Golden Guardians. I don't remember what it did. Undercut my point. Just not how I thought.
I was hoping to get Mark or Travis's opinion. If given that they have shown pretty samey picks throughout the regular season, do you think that the patch change will actually be a disadvantage for TL?
Potentially. I think there's some stuff, and
it increases volatility of the match, but
it's they played Akali. It was pretty sloppy. I wouldn't expect them to actually play Akali in the match or anything, but I don't think the meta changed drastically. I think it opened up some new options. Like Hecarim, people are saying it's busted. Huni did okay on it. I'm not sure. Like maybe there is this pick that's going to warp the series, but I don't think it's anything we've seen so far in this playoff. So, and maybe someone will find something new.
Either way, thank you, Derry, for the call. Anything you want to say before we close out the show?
No, keep the good work, and thanks to Alienware. Oh, shout out to my girlfriend Suikun, who also watches your content.
Hey,
and that's it.
I'm really happy you thought of Alienware before you thought of your girlfriend. That is the priority that I want all the callers to have when they call into the show. Either
Can't
way,
pass up that discount.
yeah,
All right, let's go.
Thank you,
Let's
Derry,
get out of here.
for the
Cheers.
call.
See you, dude.
All right, Mark has
I put
hit
it off
the
long
moment
enough.
where his girlfriend is yanking the cable. All right, Mark, what do you anything you want to shout out or plug?
No, I already plugged your YouTube channel, and I'm excited to shoot another one tomorrow. What do you want? Like afternoon, early afternoon, 1 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll figure it out later.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'm just excited to do another one of those. Goodbye.
Well, yeah, go take a look. Mark and I did a video, which is quite fun. Other than that, go watch my Portillo interview. It's really fun. He's the social media manager for Cloud9. I know people are gonna be like, "What is interviewing a social media manager? It's not like a caster or pro." He has a really cool story about how Immortals literally fired him. He got sent back to Brazil. It talks a lot about the way that the Cloud9 social media channel works and the way that different
Jack
teams
hijacked
handle
a plane
stuff.
to get him
and
back.
It's really good. I highly recommend it, and I hope more people watch it because sometimes it's great whenever people watch my content because I'm like, oh good, more people are watching it. That'll make Alienware happy, and that's fun. Sometimes I just want people to watch it because I'm like, this is good content, and I hope people watch it. So it's on my YouTube channel. Go take a look. You can stick it on in the background because it's pretty long. But either way, that's it. Go take a look at the book channel. Got some more content coming. Mark's frantically waving his hands to get out of here. And this has been Hotline League, episode 136.